Welcome CSC 200 class to part 2 of EXA contact form. First thing you're going to need to do is launch Mamp. And that's what I did right here. It's already running. And make sure your servers are running. Make sure these are running so that your SQL server is running and your Apache server is running. And once they're running, you're going to want to open your web start page. And you're going to want to go to phpMyAdmin. And you're going to want to create a database. To create a database, you're going to go to Databases. If you haven't done this for a while, and you're going to put in a name. Now the name you're going to put in is going to be called contacts, and so that they're all going to be different when you send me your database, we're just going to put in your initials. I'm going to put in RH. So you're just going to keep it all lowercase and just put your initials in there just to differentiate it. Your table will just be called contacts, but for your database name, just put your initials at the end. You don't need an underscore or dash or anything like that. Just put your initials at the end of it just to differentiate it. And then we just have to hit create. And the first thing that a database needs is a table, so we're just going to call our table contacts. Everybody will call their table contacts. You don't need initials for that for your table. Now the number of columns we're going to have is going to be 7. And there's going to be like 6 kind of fields that the client will fill out or the user will fill out, and an ID which will have the auto increment. So I'm just going to put in 7. I'll hit go, and it'll force me to fill out the columns, the information for the columns. The first one will be ID. Like last time, we'll just use a capital ID, and it'll be an integer, and we'll just put in 11. And the only other thing we have to do with our ID is just make sure that we check auto increment AI and hit go as far as making it the primary key. And then next we're going to put in last name, and we'll do that with all one word together, no dashes, no underscores. We'll do it with capital L, capital N. It's not really camel case, but we're kind of putting capital letters in between. We'll do last name, we'll do first name, and I'll put them all in first, and then we'll put in the type later. And then the last thing we'll have in here, we're calling it referral, based on how they found out about you. So that should give us right now, so we have 7 of these all together right now, and we did the first one ID. This one is going to be a varchar, or varchar. I'll just say varchar. And I'll just use 30 for all of these. So, and then for cell, same thing, we'll just use varchar. Message, we're going to do a little different. We're going to choose something called text, which will give us a larger value to put in there. So we're going to just use text. You don't have to put a limit in there. I think the limit is like 65,000 words, so we're just going to use text, which will be a bigger area. And referral is also just going to be a varchar 30. Although that's going to get plugged in anyways. They're not going to fill it out. It's just going to take the value from the radio buttons. And that should be all we need right now. And just double check on how you have them set up, because you're going to have to match these up when you do your query in your PHP file. So I'm setting them up kind of like last time. So I'm being consistent with capital letters. I'm trying to keep them all one word. Other than where they have 2 words together, I'm just using a capital letter. And even the ID is capitalized. So that's what I have. Contacts is my table. And I'll hit save. And everything looks okay. So it should look like that when you're done. You should have 7. Referral, message, cell, email, first name, last name. So we're good. And we're not going to add any in here. We're going to do that from our web page. So we're just going to leave this open right now as we work on it. And I'm going to go to e-learning. I'm going to download the file, the folder that I need. So I'm going to go to Unit 9 and go to Contact Form, click on that link, and look for the zip folder. And I'll right click on it and do Save Link As, and I'll put it right in my htdocs folder. So here's my htdocs, and I'll put it in there, and I'm going to double click on it, or however you're going to decompress it, and then I don't need the zip anymore. So I'll get rid of the zip, because you might have to zip it when you're done. So get rid of the original zip. So this is going to be in htdocs. That's the one I'm going to see. And what I want to do, whether I go into brackets or whether I go to Atom, I'm in Atom right now, and I'm just showing the EX7 because that's the last one we did, and that's a good one to go and copy things from. I'll close up the file that's there. And I'm in Atom, I could go File, Add Project Folder, just like you can do Open Folder in brackets if you plan to do that. And I'm going to go to htdocs, and I'm going to choose ex8 contacts, and I'll add that folder, and it'll have an index.html, and it'll have a display.php in there already. And most of this will be done. The only thing you're going to have to do in your index file is just put in the display.php, and that should be fairly easy, and that's the only thing you should have to do in there, because the table will be set up already. All your values will be here, so everything will be set up. But I do recommend that you go through and look at this and see how things are set up and seeing where we're getting these from, especially with the radio buttons. If you've never used radio buttons before on a form, you can see that they're set up a little bit different. They're called input type radio. They're not a input text. They're called radio, and every one is a radio, and the names are all the same, so they kind of work like a family. The only difference is the values for these. So that's a little bit different. And then also, if you haven't used a text area, and sometimes we see that little quiz in the HTML, it's not called input type text area, it's called text area is the name of that field. It's not an input, even though you are inputting into it, but it's just called a text area, and it just has a name, and we have an ID, and it's actually set up for size by rows and columns. So we set it up for 6 rows by default and 30 columns, which is really characters, even though it says columns. It really sets it up for 30 characters. So that's what sets it up right now. So you can look at that already, and I'll save what I have because I only made one little change there. Now when I want to look at this, remember, I'm going to go back to Mamp. Now this is my PHP My Admin. On the Mac side, you could go to my website, or you could open up one of these and just, if you want to just open up and just open a new tab, I could go here. Now this is actually what you want to see, but if you're seeing a longer URL, just shorten it so you see localhost, and that's what you want to see. And I could see I have everybody else in here right now because they're all in that folder. But this is the one I want to go to, ex8 contacts, and then I'll see the home page. So this is the index page that I just looked at. It's not functioning yet because I don't have all the information in, but this is the page that I'm seeing right now. So this is the one that's going to enter information, that's going to create records that actually go in our database that's running on a server. And keep in mind that we're doing this locally and we're doing it through Mamp, but PHP My Admin, all this kind of stuff is available on things like Bluehost and HostGator and GoDaddy, and any kind of ISP or web host that you use. You'll have access to PHP My Admin, and you'll have access to databases, and that they should all have PHP interpreters and things like that you should be able to use. So everything we're doing here, you should be able to do on the web. So there's nothing that would keep you from being able to do that if you were doing this on a GoDaddy account. You would just go into PHP My Admin and create your database the same way by just going into their portal. You might have to log in and do it and just find where they have it, but you would do the same thing there. So that's kind of what we're mirroring here, just on a local environment. So going back to our code of what we're going to be doing, we don't have to do anything else with this. This should be done. We have all our CSS done that makes it look the way it's going to look. Everything that's set up here, all the little tweaks to get it to look right, is done. So then what you're going to do next is you're going to open up display.php, and I have ex7 here. You could copy some things, and I even gave you a little start here. So you're going to put in your database name, which is called, in my case, it's called contacts RH, because that's what I named it in PHP My Admin. And then here, this first one is kind of done for you, and so you could just copy these, and you could just do the one for last, and then it'll be last name, and then you're gonna set all these up for, there'll be 6 of these because you won't need ID. So let me put those in. So these are the variables that I'm going to have set up: first, last, email, cell, message, referral, and these are the values that I'm going to be getting from my first page from the forms. So these are the values that we're going to be getting. And then you should have your connection. You can use your same connection from ex7. Everything will be the same. You could use your same connection to your database name, because remember, the database name stands for your database. So that should connect correctly once you put that in. Your HTML, we have just a couple styles here, one for the table, one for the header, that little header that's going to be above our records, and then one that just helps align things so they're, even when these are finished, they align kind of at the top. So if we have more information displaying, this TD vertical align top, that'll help things so that we won't have things in the middle of the others. this insert SQL. You want to change table to be your name of your table. If you used a capital C, make sure you use a capital C. And then any place where it says table, I'll just copy this and put this here. So now we're basically inserting values. Now I didn't put the values. You're going to have to put your values in here. What's going to be in here, if you remember, you're going to have to look at your EX7. And I could look at my EX7 just to take a look at that. And you can see how it's set up. Remember, this is your table name, and then these are your columns. So it's going to have last name, first name, email, cell, message, referral, and then it'll also be down here what it's going to be using for the values is going to be those variables that you set up. Because remember, the variables are the ones that are pulling the information from the form. So these are the columns, these are the variables where it's getting the information. So it's going to be inserting that stuff into the form or into your database from the form. Then we have our little insert, our little query here that's actually running the query. And then we're going to display everything, and everything else will be the same. So you should be able to copy and paste a lot of this into here. So I'll even copy all of this, even though it's going to be different. I'll copy all of this, and I'll go back here, and that's going to be here. I could copy all that stuff. I'm going to have to change these, and be careful with these little quotes and things like that, that you don't mess anything up. But remember, these are kind of the labels on top. So these are just going to have words that are inside these tags, and everything's in the quotes because they're all going to display. These are the ones that have to have quotes separate. And you could copy and paste a lot of these things. So I think everything's okay with what I did so far. You could certainly, test it out. But what you're going to have here, we are going to have ID as a heading. We're going to have first name as a heading. And I think I did last first. So we're going to do last first and then first. And then instead of species, we're going to have email. And then instead of city, we're going to have cell. And instead of gender, we're going to have message. And then we're going to have one more here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. And that's going to be referral. And same thing down here. We are going to have ID. We are going to have, I'll put last name here. I'll put first name here. And it doesn't matter what order you have it in, but I think I had last name first if you're looking at contacts. And these have to be set up exactly the way, because remember, these are getting the values from the columns. And this one's going to be email. This one's going to be cell. This one's going to be message. We're going to have one more for referral, so I'll just copy this line. And this is the one we're going to go inside of here. We're going to put a tag right next to the TD, and we're going to say div. We're going to make a special div, and we're going to say div style equals, and then in a single quote, so we have to alternate our quotes. We'll use a single quote. There's a single quote, and inside here, we're just going to put width, and we're just going to make it 200 pixels and a semicolon. So this is an internal style. So we're going to say div style equals, with a single quote, width colon 200 pixels and then a semicolon. Then there'll be a single colon or single quote and then a double quote. And then we have to basically close this off here, because that will all be inside here. This quote to there will kind of contain these two tags, the TD tag and the div tag. And then inside here, we're going to have to put the closing div tag. So closing div tag, closing TD tag inside quotes, opening TD tag, opening div tag inside quotes, and then the style, the actual style after equals with 200 pixels is going to go in a single quote, and there's a semicolon that ends after the 200 pixels. So that's for the message, so that we're actually making it so it's narrower. So we have kind of a narrow column for that. So that's all we should need for that. So everything there looks okay. Remember, we need 7, and here we have 7. So if you did your other one okay, then this should be really easy to do. So everything should be ready here, I think. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to try it out. Now remember, to try it out, you want to try it out in your, you want to go to Mamp to do that. You don't want to open up in browser. You want to make sure that it's running through your local host. So I'm just going to go back to here because this is where it's running, and I'll do a refresh since I had saved this, and you can just put in a bunch of names, anything you want. I'll put in Mark McGrath. I just saw him on some thing on YouTube, kind of a before and after kind of thing, and we'll just put McGrath. He was the guy from Sugar Ray, if you've ever heard of that, but it was just on some before and after thing. And I'll just put him at gmail.com. And I'll just give him I'll give him a 484 cell. And you could put dashes in here, or you could just put them all together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is fine. And then the message, if you want to go to some dummy text generator, this is called blindtextgenerator.com. This is actually a really nice dummy text generator site. You could set up HTML, all kinds of things, and paragraphs. It's a lot better than the Lorem Ipsum, but I just went here and just copied some dummy text. I'll just copy a little bit, and I'll put in here, unless you want to type your own stuff in here. And I'll put a period just to end that. And Mark McGrath found me from a Google search. And you could vary some of these. Try to put in, maybe about 5 contacts into your database and try to vary them a little bit of what you put in, and we'll see if this works. We don't know if it works yet, so let's see if this works. And we have error querying database, so we have an error here. Now I do see that I'm connected to localhost. I do see I'm connected to my contacts RH, error querying database. So what problem might I have with my database? Well, let's take a look. Oh, I never put in any of my stuff, so I didn't do that yet. So I have to put in my values, and I have to put in my column names here. So let me take a minute here and do that. Okay, I put in my field names, last name, first name, email, cell, message, and referral exactly as they are in my database. And then I put in the variables in quotes that have the $, just like you did on your last one, for last, first, email, cell, message, and referral. We don't need ID in here. So that should be exactly as it was in your display B file of your EX7 exercise. So let me save that, and I'll see if I could refresh. This may not do anything. I'm not sure if it's going to hold that information, but let's refresh it. And I'll just resend the information, and there, it resent the information, and there it is, ID1, McGrath, Mark. There's his email, there's the cell, there's the message, and there's the referral. So I'm just going to add like 4 more of these, and then I'm done. And when you're done, you're going to send me you're going to zip up that folder again. This folder you're going to zip up and send to me, and then you're also going to export your database and send me your database as well. You can actually put it, you could even, after you export the database, you could put it in the folder and send everything at once. Then I'll have everything in one file. Matter of fact, in the instructions, I'll recommend that you do that, because that would probably be easier. That way, before you send it off, you could just throw your database to your SQL in there. But after you export it, you could put it in here, and it'll travel fine in there. It won't affect anything else. It won't interfere with any of your other files. So that's all you should have to do for this exercise. And again, it's just one that just kind of goes through the process of setting up a contact form, which will send information, to be hosted as a database, to be hosted on a server, so you wouldn't have to be sending, just emailing, just as an email form that would you'd have to copy and paste information out of that email form. So it keeps things in a more organized way, will work better on a larger scale. So that's what you're going to be doing. That's the end of part 2, and hopefully you shouldn't have any problem doing that, finishing that up.